the point is there's a lot of challenges that are out there now, and there's a lot of excesses that have been in the system, particularly in the financial market. And what's going to be nice is to see, hopefully, by the end of the year, those excesses wrung out. You know, Goldman Sachs was just reporting what their write-down is going to be in billions of dollars for their first quarterly loss ever. So if we can get it out this year, we can kind of close the door, be a little more optimistic for 2009, realizing there's going to be more of the same March through March, but that there should be some hope on the horizon depending on how fast these economic stimulus packages get rejected.
What's the deal about the 5- and 10-year projections just being 1% and 2% now?
Well, part of that is because of the amount of deficit that we're rolling over for the U.S. government. They're saying that they are selling our children's future.
Yeah.
They're basically leveraging it so that it's going to take us so long to pay back, the taxpayers to pay back, that if you look at the real rate of return and what it's truly costing everybody, then we're suddenly looking at 1% to 2%. But what doesn't get built into that equation is the fact that all we really need is the right program. I mean, the same set of circumstances that went into play when Clinton was in office. We actually had, when Reagan was in office, we had a position where they were saying, we will never, ever, ever be out of debt. The deficit is so high and it's accumulating so fast every day, it's never going to happen. Suddenly Clinton gets in there, he finds a way to balance the budget. He finds a way to be able to make it happen.
If you want to live like a Republican, you vote Democrat.
So there's truth to what they're saying in terms of real cost spread over, but in terms of the market, in terms of like what we're doing in our portfolios, no. But if you build in what the taxes will be to be able to, in the future, to be able to pay for that, it all offsets it. I mean, suddenly right now, if you're in the top tax bracket, you're going to potentially go up 4.6% more in 2009 under the Democrats. You're going to have Social Security that they still haven't decided. You might have to pay even more going in there, but they're willing to kind of kick that one around. They still haven't decided whether capital gains are going to go up to 20% or 25%. They keep saying 20, but originally, when he was first campaigning, it was 25%. That's what he wanted to do. And the reason people were a little nervous about that is that the deficit has grown even more. I mean, if you look back when he first started campaigning for the 25% level, we didn't have this $1.6 trillion that's now promised out to everybody. So there's a very real possibility capital gains and dividends could be taxed at a 25% rate. So suddenly you look at the top level, the top tax-paying bracket. These are the people that are the business owners that are injecting money back into the companies to be able to expand and do this, and their corporate taxes were going to be cut under the Republicans over a 5-year period. Now those won't be cut. So there's a lot that's out there that if it were to get implemented in 2009, it would kind of trip up this recovery that's being planned. That's why there's a lot of pressure on President-elect Obama's economic team to defer what's going to be required until at least 2010. Let's at least get on the path where we can see we're pulling out. Things are getting a little more optimistic, then we'll slowly interject, all right, it's only going to affect the top 5% of people that are out there. Well, the challenge is when you see the graphs, the top 5% in the nation pay 37% of all the taxes. And if suddenly that top 5% has, let's say, less 6%, if you work in a worst case Social Security scenario, that's a lot that could be infused into their businesses, paying their employees more, expanding capital investments. And if they pull back, again, that's going to affect their ability to pay taxes. That's why we're having such a challenge now with all the states. All of the states, or almost all, are registering deficits. It's because their tax revenues are down. Property taxes are down, for obvious reasons. You've got suddenly the taxes that are attached to fuel. They were high on the hog January through June. They're loving life. They're making a fortune off of gas being at $4.55 a gallon. Now with gas at $1.99, $1.95, what they haven't done and where they're having their hands slapped is that they did not save for a rainy day. And they're saying when you had these tremendous surpluses in the program, you found a way to spend it every year. Instead of saying, you know, if things were to change and we were to go through another dot-com bubble bursting, let's put aside, you know, $50 billion. Just let it build and we won't have to worry. They didn't do that. They had an extra $10 billion in the account. Boom, they spent it on whatever they wanted to do. Now they're in a position where fundamental services for schools, firefighters, police, they're having to cut. They can't do it. And the difference is, this is where people forget this, the federal government has the ability to not balance their budget. They can keep running deficits into the future. They just print out more money. The states have to balance their budget. They cannot operate in a deficit. Temporarily they can do things, but they have to balance it out. So now we're faced with, you know, Governor Schwarzenegger right down the street, where he has to find a way, through some way with this loss in tax revenue, to make everything work and to pay for it, because he has to. He can't say, well, we're going to run, you know, 40 billion shy this year. It doesn't work like that. That's why you suddenly see these surge of California muni bonds that are going out there, and they're giving pretty good rates of return on the muni bonds. But where people are scared is that they want to invest in munis, they want to be diversified. They want to have an index of munis across the United States, so that if suddenly you're tied to Pennsylvania and you just read the article about the Pennsylvania Retirement Fund suddenly being in the red, because guess what? They've been investing in hedge funds. And they had great returns when the market was going nuts, but now they're in serious trouble. And you know, this is the state of Pennsylvania, where they're saying we don't know what we're going to do for our retirees and for our pension program. So you suddenly have a Pennsylvania muni bond, and you have this kind of, you know, black cloud that's hanging over your head. It's a little scary. So you definitely want to make sure you're diversified. That's why people, I think the initial bond offering that came out, there was only like 20% of the bonds were picked up and purchased. So 80% went unpurchased. So, and you know, and that was based on the first release. But the point is that if the generating or releasing bonds is really the only way that the state can come up with extra revenue to pay for services now, other than through taxation. And you know, the state taxes have kind of been set, but it's looking more likely that there is going to be a sales tax increase just because of what's going on, and that would affect everybody in the entire state.
Do you see the Roth IRAs going away?
Good question. I got asked that in an earlier appointment for an individual. The Roth IRAs, I would be very careful. If you're in Roth IRAs, don't worry about it. If you're thinking about getting into Roth IRAs, I think if you have a government that has trillions of dollars that are that's a deficit, and you have a 401k plan over here that's been basically established since 1974 under ERISA, and it's kind of untouchable. Are you kidding? Suddenly they started dipping into our pockets of 401k. Then you take something like Roth that's relatively new. There's stringent requirements for income and duration of holding period within the plan. And you take individuals that might be at a point in their life where their taxes are the least that they'll ever be, and then suddenly when they retire, they can take the money out tax-free. I find it a very tempting target for the politicians to say, you know, these Roth IRAs, we really didn't think it through, and you know, we can make so much money if we just change the rules. And the way they'll do it is based on income. And they'll say, if you make more than $150,000, if you make more than $200,000 a year, here's what happens. This is a way that they could basically make a large section of the population comfortable with it. The voters. They can get the voters to vote for it because they hit middle America, but the upper income, the same way that President-elect Obama was able to say, you know what, I'm out to only tax the ultra wealthy. They would do it the same way for the Roth IRA, where they would say, look, if you're now in this income bracket, maybe you were down here in this lesser income bracket, which is, by the way, the only way you could get into the Roth IRA to start with, we're not going to tax you on that. It's fully taxable because you made too much money. You saved too much over the course of your life. That would be my fear. That's why anyone that asks me.
Are you saying new?
New.
You already have
New.
established.
Correct.
You should buy real fast.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. They could do anything. I don't know what they could do. I'm just throwing what ifs out there. I'm saying Roth is one they could start to possibly tear apart. So if you're in a position now where you know your income level now